So welcome everybody to the Virtual Ops 2020, the fourth session of our event series. And it's a big pleasure to have you all with us for our airline pilots panel today. I just want to give you some information about the modus operandi. So we will have around about 90 minutes discussion. We are having a guest speaker today, Daniel Melendez, who is giving us a presentation. And we have the stage open for everybody to really interact also with Daniel and all the other panelists during his presentation. And I'm also suggesting that we are starting with a short introduction from everybody, that we are knowing who is in the call. And if you're just mentioning also the country you are living in and for which airline you're working, I think then everybody can have a flavor. Priya, if you maybe can start to introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Priya. I live in India. Currently, I fly with Indigo Airlines. I've been with them about 10 years now. Prior to that, I was with Kingfisher, so the overall experience is about 13 years. I'm currently flying as a check pilot in the middle of my TRI upgrade on the A320s.
Next one is Christian.
Hi, everybody. I'm Christian Amaral. I'm a first officer at United Airlines in the U.S., and I currently fly the Airbus 320. I've been with United for about 5 years, but I've been in aviation in various capacities for about 16.
Captain Hamdan, the stage is yours. You are muted, I believe.
Forgot about it. Hi, everybody. Good evening from Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. My name is Hamdan, basically from Malaysia Airlines. I've been flying with Malaysia Airlines for the last 28 years, and currently a captain for A330 and also A350. And at the moment, I'm in Malaysia, and I am a director of flight operations for Malaysia Airlines. And I think that's about it. Thank you. Have a good sessions, everybody.
Now we are going completely eastbound to Australia. Shiv.
Hi, everyone. Shiv Shahani. I'm a second officer on the Boeing 787 for Jetstar in Australia. I've worked with Jetstar for about 8 years. In a number of head office roles prior to working as a pilot, which I started October last year.
And then we go to German Ribeiro.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Germán Rivero from Colombia, South America. I'm right now in Bogota, and right now working with Copa Airlines as a TRI on Boeing 737, and also working with the EBT program, and that's all. Thank you.
Daniel, if you like to introduce yourself, please.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Daniel Melendez from Colombia. My formal presentation is that I flew for almost 30 years as a fighter pilot. Then I moved to the consultancy. I have a company working with strategy, leadership, motivation, and cash flow for the aviation industry. And my essence presentation is that I have discovered through my time that I have the ability to discover patterns to improve decision making. Thank you for inviting me, and I will be very happy to share my knowledge to try to improve all together. Thank you.
Then we have Martin Sorella now on the call. If you can introduce yourself, that would be great. Martin, can you hear us? Okay, Daniel, then I suggest we're starting with your presentation. I invited also all the other colleagues from your region. I hope they are going to join shortly. And we will then also later on discuss about the other topics we want to discuss with the panelists. Of course, it's about the environment of the pilot and COVID-19 situation, but also talking about fatigue risk management, also discussing with you about the situation of pilot surplus, how will it potentially change the working environment of pilots in the future, and how also you are seeing the collaboration between airlines and unions in the future. And then if we have still some time, maybe also discuss the single-man cockpit, which is of course a very topical topic to discuss later. So Daniel, the stage is yours. We're looking forward to your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Today my presentation will be focused on telling something that you already know. Pilots are trained for the unexpected situation. And it happens every day. This is myself. I have already introduced. And the
Can you go on presenter mode? Because we are seeing all these slides and also the background picture. If you do presenter mode, then we have large picture.
Say again, please.
Presenter mode. If you can start the presenter mode, because you have currently the design mode.
I think the slideshow mode.
Yeah, exactly. Slideshow mode.
So are you seeing my screen?
Yeah, we see the screen, but we also see all the other slides already, and we are also seeing yes, the Seno and so like that.
Okay. I got it. Okay.
If you click on this, you see the minus and the plus on the bottom right, and if you click on the next icon next to the minus, that's the presenter mode.
Okay, here. It's okay right now?
We can see it. Go on, please.
Okay. As I'm doing in all my presentation, this is my intention. And I'm here to inspire other people who share their knowledge to generate different options, perspective, and point of view that allow us to achieve our dreams, find opportunities, and solve doubts in crisis, knowing that we are all part of a system. Before I started with my presentation, I want to share with you something that happened to me in the past. Pilots can be safer and at the same time be more innovative. So this new approach to be innovative and safe, you will enjoy much more. Safety culture is how you and your organization perceive, value, and prioritize it to achieve your goals. When, on the other hand, the culture of innovation is the number one ability to achieve your goals and those of your organization. The truth, I doubt if you want your organization to be safe and innovative, is because you want it to be safe and innovative without anyone watching. Many years ago, I remember meeting a wise old pilot who taught me many useful things. I appreciate all of his advice. I remember one particular day when he said to me, "Change is easy and can be fun. Remember that while you are a pilot or a passenger, your chair can support you while making these changes. And when you manage to appropriate this new concept of safety and innovation, then I will be able to speak to you as a changed person. Sometimes they are unexpected, and they don't follow the rules." I remember when I was a very young pilot who had just taken off from San Andres to Barranquilla in this fighter aircraft, a Cessna 837. I was flying in a fighter aircraft at 25,000 feet with adverse weather conditions. Suddenly, Without feeling anything in my body, I noticed that my tunnel of vision was closing more and more very fast. At that moment, my training and survival instinct told me, hey, you are in an emergency. Descend very fast and turn on the oxygen supply to 100%. I don't remember how much time passed, but in a very short moment, I was at 10,000 feet out of the clouds in a huge blue sea. When I had control the situation with my plane, the same did not happen with my emotions. My mind started to be very scary. So I remember the importance to breathe quiet. During that moment of inspire and exhale, the co-pilot chair started talking to me with positive messages for several minutes until the situation was completely calm. At that time, when I wanted to change the world, my analysis of what happened told me that my training and my survival instinct had acted correctly. Today, being more wise, I understand that at that specific moment of the time, I did the greatest innovation in my life because I was able to convert my seat into a personal motivator to achieve my goals of arriving safely to my final destination. So I started to tell this story because in the past, I used to have a fixed mindset, and today I have working hard to change to a growth mindset.
Daniel, I have a question on that, because if you say you had a fixed mindset, and that's also a question or to the other colleagues, is this typical a pilot thing to have a fixed mindset, or was it just your thing, Daniel?
It was my way of thinking in the past. The way I understand the situation, not the way I was thinking. Because when I started to know myself, I understand that at this time, I was using my mindset to open different opportunities to save the time and to arrive safely to my final destination.
Christian, is this something where you say pilots have something in common? They share a certain way of thinking, a certain decision-making approach, or do you see also huge differences about pilots all over the world?
No, I see a lot of similarities. I think pilots tend to be very type A. We definitely crave structure and sort of thrive in that sort of environment. That can make for some interesting, dynamics on the flight deck. But honestly, the older I get, the more experience I have, I think the more open I've become to, always, being flexible with my thinking. And I think that's the mark of a really good pilot, and that comes with experience.
Priya, we were talking in the women's panel about being a female pilot. Do you think female pilots think differently than male pilots?
No, not at all, Daniel. I don't think there's any difference in the way a pilot thinks. I think that there's lots of common ground because pilots are governed by operating procedures and situations that are different every day. And that's why I think though we have similar ways of thinking, I don't think there's any difference between how a male or a female pilot would think. It's I notice differences between people outside the pilot community, though. I mean, even at home, even ever since I've become a pilot, my way of approaching situations and and dealing with them is far more analytical than it's ever been before. So yeah, but no, I don't think there's a gender aspect to that at all.
But is it not that the saying is that women have more empathy and men are more on the let's say on the hard facts, and now you're saying I'm also going more analytical. Is it that this empathy factor is then not playing any role anymore? But on the other hand, I'm always impressed if there is something in the sky that the pilot's always keeping cool and have a very empathic, say, approach in announcing and explaining situations. Is this not also important to show empathy then as a pilot?
I don't think operating an aircraft leaves a lot of scope for empathy. There's no real empathy involved in decision making where flying an aeroplane is concerned. The only aspect where empathy could even play the smallest role would be if it were a situation dealing with passengers. And that's extremely rare. It doesn't happen. I mean, in 13 years, I've probably had 2 situations that have needed my attention in the cabin. But I don't really think that when it comes to execution of a flight from A to B, there's a lot of room for empathy, and other than the human aspect, maybe with your co-pilot or something like that, but not an execution of flight duties.
Okay, Daniel. Sajid, sorry, please go on.
Hi, my name is Sajid. I work for Air India. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, very good.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Sorry, I just joined a little bit late. I was trying to connect through iPad, but that didn't work. So now I'm on my laptop. So yeah, I've been working with Air India since 2001, and it used to be erstwhile Indian Airlines. Then we merged with Air India since 2007. So I've been working on Air India, and presently I'm working as a TRI, that's type credit instructor. And yeah, I missed the first part of the discussion. So where can I find all the information?
We are currently all appreciating the presentation of Daniel Melendez, who is going through his slides now.
Okay.
So Daniel, please go on.
Okay. Okay, thank you. But today we are living in a complex environment in the aviation industry. We have in the middle the airline, but at the same time we have the passengers, we have the airport, we have the airspace, we have the flight crew, the fuel, the ground services and maintenance services, we have the manufacturer, we have the transport and distribution systems, we have the suppliers, we have the training centers, we have the tourist agencies, and all the system has many risks, and we have to be able to understand the risks from different perspectives in order to be able to succeed.
Daniel, we are still seeing your first slide, Daniel Melendez Colombia. That's the slide we are seeing.
Okay. And this is what in the real life happened. These all are opinions, and we have to adjust all the opinions to the same speed in order to obtain better results. But I want to start telling you something that you all together know very well, flight planning. And when I talk about flight planning, in my case, when I started to think that I have to fly, I have to think about the aircraft status. I have to think about the flight route. I have to understand what will be my new destination. I have to check the crew status, and I have to understand something about the city that we are going to visit in order to use the time in a wise focus. But if we want to, we can, this is the way we share the information with the crew, but I have another way to share the same information. And I want to invite you to bring a piece of paper while I will be explaining what I have here is the same information that I presented before, but I want to explain you another way to do that. The step one will be the expected results or the dreams you have. And from my perspective, I would like to have all the competencies of the flight crew at least 90% or above. I want to have an excellent flight customer experience. I want to arrive on time. I want to have all the risks identified and minimized. And I want to learn and I want to have a learning and relaxing time with the flight crew.
Danny, I have a question. Are you presenting already a different slide? Because we are still seeing your slide number 3.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Now you see the
still
image.
Slide number 3. You have to go in presentation mode. Slideshow.
So what slide are you seeing?
We still see slide number 3.
Oh.
I think probably you need to exit first the sharing sessions and then re-enter back again. That probably fix this thing.
Now, did you see that?
Now we see flight planning here. Exactly.
Okay. Okay, so I was explaining that when I started to plan my flight in the past, I checked the aircraft status, the flight route related to the new destination. I checked the crew status and I also checked the sightseeing in order to optimize the time when I was flying. But the thing that I was explaining before is the normal way to check the flight planning. I'm going to share with you a new way the new way that I am using to understand the flight planning. The step one is related to expected results, and from my point of view, I want to have the flight crew competencies at 90% or above. I want that this flight will be an excellent flight customer experience. I want to arrive on time. I want to identify all the risks and minimize. And I want to have a learning and relaxing time with flight crew. What is my current situation in this COVID time? We have the flight planning systems ready. We know that the fuel will be available and the plane will be loaded with the right fuel. We will have the weather and flight information available. We will have the aircraft airworthiness according with the operating manuals. We will have the flight crew ready to fly. When I mean ready to fly means to have the medical status and to have the proficiency checks ready to fly again. And we will be performing a crew briefing. And I will have to go from step 2 to step 1, but I found some limitations or difficulties on today's environment. We have to comply with COVID-19 protocols for the destination that I choose, Singapore. The flight protocols tell the crew that they cannot leave from the hotel anytime during the period they will stay at the hotel. Also,
that's a very good sample. That's a very good sample, Daniel, because Yvonne, who is also here in this panel, is currently in Singapore. So she's exactly suffering also from the situation that she cannot walk easily around.
Okay.
Isn't it, Yvonne?
Yes, that's right. There's still quite a lot of restrictions, movement restrictions in Singapore at the moment.
Okay. Another thing that will be like a difficulty management team is working under severe pressure to perform better than 100%. Situation awareness is affected because of the low flight time. And there are also passenger fears to COVID-19 due to contagious. And I also make a little open to implication of this flight, because I understand that flight must be perfect to build trust with passengers again. This is something that we have to do as part of the crew. And if something goes wrong, the airline can be financially broke. So this is something that we have to understand very well from the beginning. When I have
Daniel,
this,
that's a very good statement, Captain Hamdan. As Malaysia Airlines is now also operating more and more, is this also an important perspective now for the current flight planning to do everything that passengers have a very good confidence to fly again, even with all the face over and the sanitizing and physical distance measures in place?
Yes. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I think that's a valid statement given by Daniel. I think the current scenario, when we talk about the travel industries, right? How basically airlines can give a confidence level to the passengers in terms of managing the COVID-19, where the new norms for the airlines actually is been discussing how to instill the confidence level to the passengers with regard to the recommendations given either by the authorities or regulators or whatsoever. It is something that we foresee within the airlines. That's something that what do you call it? Things that we still need to understand more on what is the passengers' needs. Even though with all the information being given, I think assurance being given by the health authority, in this case I think WHO or even IATA, talking about the low risk of COVID-19 exposure to the passengers. However, there are still the doubt, I think, within the passengers that still, I think, instill within their perceptions of managing this. Hence, even though when airlines imposing a social distancing, giving a little bit of what I call it extra kits, example hygiene kits during travel, and imposing wearing of masks during the boarding or even in flight. It is something that something new, I think for all the passengers. But again, until everybody have a confidence of how to manage these two situations, I think it will be a big issues or problem, I think, for most of the airlines, basically to go back to the normal situations.
Just picking up on that really quickly, in the U.S. there's a spat currently between the head of my company at United and Delta's CEO, talking about, Delta's decided to block middle seats until at least the end of September from occupancy. And so our CEO has said, look, social distancing is not possible on an airplane. We've consulted our experts. They say the whole thing is a myth. So we clean the airplanes really well. We have the electrostatic spraying on board in between flights, and everybody wears a mask or they don't get on board the airplane. whereas Delta's CEO, and he's actually called it Delta's move to block seats, a marketing ploy. And I don't, I'm not sure that was maybe necessary to say it in those terms, but it's just kind of interesting to see how that's evolving. There was an MIT study released yesterday that talked about how basically occupying the middle seat doesn't meaningfully impact anyone's chance of contracting COVID on an airplane, for whatever that's worth. There are a lot of experts who seem to disagree with that, though. So,
yeah, I think it's a very interesting statement, because the question is, even if somebody traveling from A to B and is taking an airplane and then is infected, did he get the infection on board or at the airport or at immigration or at security check? So nobody is knowing that. So that's why it's a very interesting perspective you are bringing up.
I think in terms of airlines, with the new norms that we try to basically convince passengers to take air travel as a part of normal transportations, is that there's extra things that when we want to impose, basically we always turn out what is the cost, and extra things that out of norm and that we are trying to implement basically is always be tied up with the cost. I think that's something that airlines as United or even Delta is telling, blocking the middle seats basically is something that out of norm that will have an impact, whether in the revenue or even the cost. That's something that most of the airlines are having a dilemma of what to basically to manage, I think, this in these new situations.
Sapna, you have also a question.
Yeah, so we were discussing how we instill confidence in the passengers, our customers, but then how does the airline instill confidence in the crew members? How do crew members, like Daniel was mentioning earlier, travel restrictions keep changing in each destination very dynamically. How do you come to know about that? How do you feel secure to travel? Is your check-in process more contactless now? Do you have separate work allocations within in-flight? So what's happening at airlines to ensure that crew feel more confident to operate and take the airlines to the skies?
Yeah, that's exactly a good question, because Daniel, you put in flight must be perfect to build the trust for the passenger, but I think the same is true for cabin crew and pilots. Because
yes.
Also,
yes, and this is the next slide. The solution, the formula for the roadmap for the first flight. So this is our destination airport. This is our departure airport, and based on the flight planning visualization exercise, this is my roadmap. We have to update to the employees daily about the company financial status. We have to work with a situation awareness training program for flight crew and management team before flight. And during this awareness training program, we will be discussing about all the fears and all the situations that are related to the COVID-19 program in order to increase the situation awareness. And there is also a special training program to follow COVID-19 protocols that has to be taught, and also a passenger training program to eliminate fear of contagious. And this is something that some companies are doing right now. For example, I saw a few days ago a news from Thailand that they are inviting the passengers to board the plane like a fake flight to understand what are the real needs of the passengers inside their plane, act as they were flying, but they will keep on ground all the time, and they will use this time as the same flight time to understand passenger needs and to find out if there is something that is missing. and this is what I can share with you based on my experience, and also based on several workshops that we are doing in Colombia with some fly crew members and managers from different places of South America.
That's a very interesting. That's a very interesting idea to make the training for the passengers, because that would also give airlines also some time to spend with the passengers, even not being able to fly. Are you going to share some more insights about this passenger training?
Not today.
Yeah, but of course, it would be interesting whether then also the airline is offering their in-flight meals for the consummation during this training, how this training is organized, because that's something which I would see as a huge innovation, that airlines are also training their passengers, because I think the industry is used to pilot training and cabin crew training and ground staff training. And it would be interesting to see how I get to be trained from Malaysia Airlines or United Airlines. That would be interesting.
Okay, that will be a challenge. Okay, and now I want to pass to...
I have a question, please. So when you talk about the special trainings that are offered to your staff and crew members, is that physical, or is any part of it, e-skilling through remote tools, or do you ensure social distancing within your training facilities?
Okay, those are my following slides. So we are very well connected. Okay, the training program for the flight crew has to be focused on the flight crew competency, because this is the EASA model, and based on this model, pilots are prepared to operate in highly complex environment with aircraft equipped with the latest technology, following international regulations and practical communication skills, where planning and safety always come first. The competency model has three main parts: procedural, crew, and technical. Procedural are related to knowledge and use of procedures, and those two can be trained in the flight simulator. And also the technical, the use of automation and manual handling can be done on the sim. But the crew is something that we have to work with a different approach, because we have to improve the communication skills, we have to understand the workload management, the situation awareness, the leadership and teamwork and decision making. For today, I will present some examples of the crew factors that are with yellow letters. For situation awareness, I want to share with you a video, and I want you to pay very close attention to what is happening in the screen, because I will stop the video in the middle of the presentation, and then you will see, I will ask you about some responses. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
How many passes does the team in white make? How many passes does the team?
How many passes does the team in white make? Who has the answer?
I got 32, but I don't know if that's anywhere near correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's not something I would like to check with all the other pilots and check also their analytical capabilities. So anybody has less or more than 32?
I got like 14.
14.
I got 20.
Okay.
14, 20, 32.
I'm not a pilot and I got 10.
Okay. Okay, and I want you to understand that this is situation awareness, and this is going to happen in the flight cockpit when you will be flying.
The answer is 13.
Wow.
Fueron 13 pases entre, it was 13 passes between the people with the white color.
And who said 14? We had a 14 here.
I did, yeah, Priya.
Oh, you were very...
Oh, Priya. Well, it's phenomenal. I'm so honored that you are on our panel. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, continue watching the video because there is another question that you have to answer.
But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Oh, sorry. Did you see the bear crossing the scenario?
Yes, the black one.
No. Yes, the black one. Who saw the black one?
Me.
Oh, great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Me too, but the problem was that I was not focusing on the passes because I was expecting that something would happen. But Priya, did you also see the bear, or you were focusing on the passes?
I was focusing on the passes. Yeah, no, I didn't see the bear.
Okay, and this is something that we all together have to train in order to improve our situation awareness when we will be flying and when we will be dealing with all the new things that we have to take care of.
But is it not the reason that we have two pilots in the cockpit? One is seeing the bear and the other is counting the passes?
Yes. Because there are many things that will happen during that time.
It really happened.
Okay, let's finish the video.
Walking bear.
And this is all about situation awareness. And we as pilots have to be very well trained to understand where are we right now when we will be flying. We have to be at the present moment while flying in order to be able to understand everything that is happening inside the flight cockpit.
Daniel, that's really a great statement because I think spot on. Because I think we have also on the ground people working in an environment with Gantt charts and trying to find the needle and a bunch of information. And very often they're also not seeing the bear because they're counting tail numbers or crew members. So I think spot on for this comparison, and yeah, amazing. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay. Now I have another video. And this situation awareness is a flight crew competency that has to be improved. The other one is leadership and teamwork. And this is another training that we have to work as part of the flight crew members, and because that will be very important to have in mind while we will start flying again. Okay. Another important thing that we all have to be aware is communication. Because communication, I believe, is very important to improve our current situation. Because communication depends on the way we communicate most of the time. Sometimes people use visual to communicate, auditory or kinesthetic. When I talk about visual, the way to communicate with a person that is visual, that has this representation to understand anything you want to share with somebody, you will use "I see what you mean." When people say something similar to this, you can understand that this is a visual person, and if you want to communicate with him, you have to use words that are related to the visual environment. When you are talking with a people that is auditory, you will have to say, "I hear what you are saying." And when you are kinesthetic, you will say, "It feels to me like," but the way you communicate with people will affect the brain, because the brain has a different interpretation mode depending on the way people communicate. So now I want to do with you a simple exercise. Which do you communicate more in? If you have a piece of paper, please check the column number 1, column number 2, column number 3 and 4, and mark all the words that are more close to you. You have 1 minute to do that.
Daniel, that's also a very special moment because we have a silent 1 minute during a Virtual Ops 2020 session. That's also amazing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have already completed 1 minute. Who want to share the results from column number 1?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead.
Column number 1 is observe. Column number 2 is amplify. Column number 3 is appropriate. And number 4, understand.
Okay, I want you to do this like this. You can mark the words that are more related to your personality. Because the way we mark, for example, I will choose this, visualize, maybe listen, maybe be here, maybe I talk about audience, and so on. Someday we will have to sum all of this in each column to see if you are more visual, auditory, kinesthetic, or undefined. In my case, I started with auditory when I have communicating. When somebody wants to communicate me, I have to listen very well first. Then I can be very visual, and after I listen and see what somebody is telling me, I need to feel. This is the way my brain interprets the current situations. Who has a different approach that can share with us?
Well, Daniel, not sure if I've done this right, but I've got 8 on the visual and 8 on the undefined. And then I got 6 that I relate to in the auditory and 5 that I relate to in the third column, which is feel, was it? A kinesthetic. So I'm assuming I'm more of a visual and undefined kind of communication person.
Yes, and that's something very important for you, because if you are more visual and undefined, this is something that you have to focus to train better in order to align your brain with your communication style. Because if I show you something, you will understand better than if I say, for example, to you, what is your name? Sorry?
It's
No,
Sapna, Daniel.
Okay, I couldn't understand. But
you can Sap, so you can call me Sap.
Sam, okay. If I say, are you able to listen the audience to understand how do you communicate? Maybe you will feel like, what is he telling me? If I say, see the table that I'm showing to you and mark all the actions that identify more your the way you understand things in your brain, then sum each column and give me the results. That will be easier for you to understand the instructions. And that will happen in the flight cockpit all the time. And this is something that we have to train in order to understand ourselves and understand the people who sit beside me, the co-pilot or the pilot in command. Because
but Daniel, how is it also from the cultural perspective? Because in certain cultures you have a pretty direct communication pattern. In other cultures you have an indirect communication pattern. Is this then also same in any culture, or you are also seeing some national and cultural differences in this approach?
The approach, I believe, is more related with each one. And depending on the culture of the place where you are living, maybe it will support you in a little bit approach, but your brain will understand in the way you will understand the information, if this is visual, auditory, kinesthetic, or undefined. And then based on your culture, you will use your visual approach to explain something. You understand? Anybody has any question?
Yes, I got one.
Go ahead.
Talking about the last PEA accident preliminary report, do you think that the communication was a main issue in that accident?
I don't know, Herman, what happened in that flight. What I read based on the news is that the pilots flying were using a fake license, and as soon as you see a fake license or you listen that pilots are not well qualified, I feel very nervous because anything can happen. Okay, if there are no more questions, I will continue.
Daniel, is there something that we can learn about situational awareness also from that communication? So is there, based on your understanding across various audiences, did you find that more effective communications is on the visual side, or is it a combination? Do you have any insights there? How best situational awareness on the flight planning side should be communicated to crew members?
To improve the situation awareness, you have to learn very well how is your communication style and your flight crew communication style. You have to train again for leadership and teamwork, and also decision making, because decision making is finally what is the most important thing that we have to do when we will be flying, because there are some kind of situation that requires the flight crew take a decision. And I have this video to answer your question. Okay. I don't know, maybe I make a mistake.
No, I think you have to disable the marker. You still have the marker mode.
Okay. Thank you. How can I?
Now it's disabled. I think now it's taking the play mode. No. Now we have marked it again. Disable. No. You are still in marker mode. Go on the marker.
But I don't know how to remove it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now it's exactly. Now you have it disabled. Now you can start the movie.
No. Oh shoot.
I think if you click again on the pen, you should disable it.
Okay.
Yeah. And now you proceed.
Okay.
Now it's switched on again.
Okay. Thank you.
Circumstances as you can find. And aviation provides a lot of challenge. Psychologically, being in an aircraft is very similar to being in a rocket because you are dependent on this machinery. You are in an uncomfortable cockpit, maybe wearing a helmet, oxygen mask. There's tens of dials in front of you. You have to monitor all that data, the radio and many channels talking at the same time. You have to constantly filter out what is important and to make decisions that can have big impacts. You cannot press pause while you're flying a jet. You can train astronauts in simulators, but at the end of the day, anyone in a simulator knows that they're going to be going home safe and sound to their family. It's only when you can put someone in a situation where their decisions actually affect whether they live or die that they begin to truly develop those operational skills that will allow them to make better decisions in places like low Earth orbit and beyond, as we prepare to go to places like the moon, asteroids, and eventually Mars.
Okay. If you understand or you have refreshed training about leadership and team working, communication skills, situation awareness, decision making will be easier. And we will be able to practice decision making in the flight sim, but the real decision making has to be done while we all together will be flying. And we have a special ability to make decisions, and this is a very, very good competence that all of us has developed while we will be flying, and this is something that many companies are looking for, and we are training every day to do that in the simulator and in the real life. So
Circumstances gases.
So do you have any question until here? Okay, if you don't have question, I will move to show you aviation current situation. This is something that Daniel published in LinkedIn yesterday, and I found it very interesting because it has a survey that explains how the business manager understands the global airline industry, and the first one talk about when the total revenue levels will come to the industry again, and they believe between 18 months to 3 years, almost half of the business manager believes this. Another question, how well prepared do you believe the airline industry was for the COVID pandemic? There are no good news because the survey showed that we were poorly prepared and also could not prepare for such a black swan event. So we were not thinking that this COVID situation will happen. Nobody imagined that. And because imagination is very important in aviation, so we have to understand, we have the ability to understand this, and this is why the flight simulator exists. The engineers build the airplane with all the teams to work very well. When you go to the simulator, you will train the situation that you think will not occur anytime, because the flight competencies will allow you to be safe and land in your current destination, as my initial example when I started the presentation. Another question was, will the airline industry survive the COVID-19 crisis? Almost 70% of the people say yes. And they also said that the aspect of the aviation industry that will recover fastest will be domestic travel, and this is happening in my country. We will start maybe tomorrow or the day after tomorrow the domestic travel as a pilot test, and then will be business travel, and then point-to-point routes, and I believe that aviation is going to survive this moment, and we will be stronger than before.
But is this not a bit a striking answer that the people believe the business travel will recover fastest? Is it not exactly the other way around, that the leisure travel will recover first, and people are now debating, is it really necessary to travel on business if you can do things via MS Teams or other video conferencing tools?
Yes, actually, the way I think, I will start with leisure travel, because I want to go and visit my son that is living in Qatar. And then maybe I will start doing business travel, but my first step will be to go and visit him.
Maybe that's a question to Captain Hamdan. How is currently your feel on the recovery of Malaysia Airlines business? Is it more leisure travel or is it more business travel?
Basically, the current market that we are doing mostly domestic travel. I think because of the travel restriction that we impose in certain countries. But looking at the domestic travel, we foresee there's a lot of leisure travel instead of business. I think, as you said just now, most of the business travel actually being restricted by the companies, and they are more or less going for the alternative way of doing business. I think, as you said, they are quite comfortable enough doing the virtual conference and do the con calls. Hence, we foresee lesser business travel basically recorded in Malaysia Airlines. I'm not sure whenever the travel restrictions been lifted, that probably not too soon. But I can foresee once the travel restrictions been lifted, we might probably see a little bit increase in the business travel because some business do require physical appearances of the persons, I think, to the countries. But it won't happen, I think, too soon from now. That's like.
And Priya, for Indigo, was it primarily leisure travel when you restarted, or was there also a good portion of business travelers on board? What do you think?
So Daniel, I think COVID has basically caused a paradigm shift with airlines and businesses in general. So I think people have come to realize that there are huge amounts of money that can be saved by doing virtual things online, work from home, etc. So there's bound to be some permanent impact. Most businesses have banned business travel for the foreseeable future, almost entirely. So I think right now the travel that I've witnessed on the few flights that I've done is almost close to zero business and mostly personal. And I don't see that number changing for a long time to come. I know that most businesses of friends that I have here who work with IT companies and all have banned travel for at least 6 months. To be honest, I think we didn't realize the amount you could get done without actually physically being present. And I think that while COVID has caused us to cost cut, it might just become a permanent way of life for a lot of organizations because of the numbers. So yeah, I think it's basically leisure travel that will step up gradually, but I'm not so sure about the business travel aspect.
And what is the consequence then for the pilot job? If you have less aircraft up in the air, also less pilots are required. What is your perspective on that? What does it mean? Will a big portion of pilots open a different business, or will there be a battle of cockpits amongst all global pilots?
So I definitely think there will be a severe excess for a long time to come. It's hard to predict the long-term future for aviation at the moment, but I think that different airlines have different strategies on at the moment. Some have elected to fire part of the workforce, and some have elected to distribute pay cuts amongst the entire workforce, protecting jobs. But definitely for someone looking to join the industry from outside now, it's really going to be hard to find a break. People who are already in there, not in training, established, I think are at much lower risk. But no one really knows where this is going to bottom out. There's no way to predict that at this point. So it is a very, very vulnerable profession to be in right now, for sure.
And is there kind of a global networking amongst pilots to figure out what might be the best, let's say, disruption mitigation strategy? Is there a best practice, or is every pilot and every airline pilot group trying to deal with the situation on its own?
So I don't know of any global networks, Daniel, and actually global networks would only help if the distribution of jobs was global. It's usually country specific. So other than the Middle East and a few other airlines that recruit from across the world, most airlines have the highest proportion of people from their own country. So having a global network to discuss these issues wouldn't really help the situation. It might help on an emotional front because you have a lot of people to chat with and talk to. But I don't really think that a decision about what should be done to mitigate risk would help. It would help. I mean, chatting across the planet wouldn't really help that. So India has a different situation going for them. The US would have a different situation. The numbers are completely different. So I just think the largest group you can actually hope to form is within the country, probably.
And Priya, do you see multi-skilled crew members coming out more, like not just specific aircraft trained, but skilled across multiple aircrafts? And do you also see kind of a union level seniority list being implemented, like the US is talking about, instead of per airline seniority, which makes shifting between companies and aircraft types more easier if you have a generic seniority list between crew members?
So, Sapna, the thing with Indian Airlines is they're privately owned, and having a seniority list across the country would really not, there's no external agency that currently has any say in what the respective employer chooses to do with its workforce. So I'm not so sure that having having a list across airlines would really achieve anything in our environment here in India. About having trained pilots across several aircraft, that's currently something that the DGCA, we don't have that concept happening in India at the moment. The other thing is we don't have a very large number of aircraft types flying in the country. You have the 737s, the 320s primarily, and then the 787s and the wider bodies with a couple of other airlines. But if you look at the numbers, we mainly function in the domestic market with narrow body aircraft. And we have enough pilot numbers to not need a cross cockpit or a qualification across types. It also helps in retaining jobs, because if you could actually have a pilot qualified on 2 or 3 aeroplanes, I think that just puts us at larger risk at the moment.
Captain Hamdan, how is it with Malaysia Airlines? Are you also planning to give up certain aircraft type and then you have to retrain the pilots from this type rating to the remaining aircraft, or is this not an issue at the moment for your airline?
Not at the moment. I think because probably we are a bit lucky. We don't have many types of aircraft within our organizations. We do have about 4 types of aircraft within the Malaysia Airlines. And fortunately, our regulators do allow multiple rating for the A330 and 350. So most of the pilots, like myself, being a dual rate on both aircraft, that's basically an advantage in terms of our manpower requirements. But again, and I think in the Malaysia Airlines situations, when we talk about A380 operations, I think worldwide the A380 has become a burden to the airlines because of the capacity that we need to fill up the aircraft to make sure that the cost of operating the aircraft will be covered. And I think in the current scenario, to fill up the big aircraft, especially the 380, I don't think is something that's possible now. And of course, yes, I think for Malaysia Airlines, when we talk about the 380 operations, it's something that are quite challenging for us to do it for the time being. Even though with all the decisions that have been made, currently we try to retain as many as possible pilots within the organizations. I think in the Malaysia Airline in situations, in particular for Malaysia, we foresee our authority now becoming more strict with regard to the foreign license. Meaning they are trying to impose a little bit of extra requirements for those who are non-Malaysians to fly with a Malaysia company. And I think this could be something that may happen probably other areas within the world. because of the current situations where pilots numbers actually is excess or surplus all over the world, and most probably countries or regulators try to protect their own nationalities to basically to have or to supply the jobs, especially pilots.
Thank you. Daniel, do you want to go on?
Can I just add one more point there? Sorry, I think Sapna, you spoke about seniority earlier and how it potentially makes it easier to transfer from one aircraft to the other. In Australia, pilots essentially live on a seniority list, so that's something that's been established here for a long time. And in terms of making it easier to switch aircraft, it really doesn't, definitely in Australia, because it relies on vacancies being created. So if you have, for example, at Jetstar, we have a narrow body fleet and a wide body fleet. And to move between aircraft, you have to have a vacancy somewhere down the seniority list for that to happen, which, as we spoke about earlier, because of the surplus of pilots at the moment, there really are no vacancies right across the seniority list. And if you look at Jetstar being part of a broader Qantas group, it also doesn't really allow for Jetstar pilots to work at Qantas and vice versa, because we work off two separate seniority lists. So seniority list from that point of view is a bit of a hindrance, is probably, for lack of a better term, the word to use there, because it really restricts on how you can move pilots around. And it also creates additional cost as well, because as you move pilots around on the seniority list, that potentially creates more vacancies further down the line. And rather than having just one stage of training on a pilot, you might end up with multiple layers of training now because of one vacancy created.
Right. And what when, say, one of your aircrafts is retired or something, do you cross-train the crew members to go into a separate fleet? Right now, we can see a lot of retirements of aircraft types instead.
So it's not something that's happened at Jetstar, but you're starting to see it at Qantas now, with the 747 being retired. And essentially, it all comes down to what's in the enterprise agreements of the crew. Different airlines would have different provisions in the pilot contracts. And I'm not sure what's in the Qantas contract, but it could range from redundancy to compulsory retraining on a new aircraft. Obviously, right now, it's pretty tricky because you're retiring a fleet at Qantas, but there are no vacancies on any other aircraft to move them onto. And I think the A380 was mentioned earlier. You can't move them onto the A380. There's no surplus on any of the domestic aircraft, so it's a pretty tricky scenario at the moment.
I think this is pretty the same for all the airline worldwide, because whenever you retire, basically a particular fleets, the issues now is where you're going to put the pilots to. And I think most airlines with their unions basically do have what I call it, the mutual agreement within the contract between the pilot and the company that need to be observed, I think, by the company on the mutual separations. For Malaysia Airline experience, before we converted ourselves into Malaysia Airline Berhad in 2015. Basically, the seniority actually is the main things that we look into when we talk about the career progressions for pilots. But moving away from old Malaysia Airlines to the new Malaysia Airlines, we removed that seniority numbers within the pilot community. And we foresee the advantage of removing the seniority, basically as per what she was saying, where actually you are not restricting yourself to basically to put certain people into certain fleets. That's basically the advantage that we have when we moving away from the seniority pilots.
Cap Namdan, just got a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Earlier in the early 2000s, the Far East countries were affected by SARS. Was Malaysian Airlines affected by SARS, and how did the airline recover during that period?
We do because basically most of our operations basically operating into Far East, whether it's Hong Kong or China. I think learning from the previous experience of SARS, basically the Asians area have, I think, quite a major impact on that. And for Malaysia Airlines, we, if not mistaken, we required about 12 months to recover ourselves from the impact of SARS.
Okay.
And yeah, and of course, basically this is something new because I think during SARS crisis, it's only concentrated, I think, within the Asia country.
That's right.
But yeah, not the other area. Unlike this
Yes.
one, basically, yeah, everybody actually is.
Yeah, this is more wide. I mean, it affects a lot more airlines than just the Far East airlines.
Yeah.
That's
So
right.
so the 12 months recovery, I think, is probably too soon for the COVID-19. And I think most of the analysis being given, I think the period of 18 to 24 minimum, I think, is quite relevant for the time being.
Okay.
Daniel, please go on with your presentation.
Okay.
We have still 8 minutes.
Okay. Now I want to invite you to go out of your own comfort zone before drawing our roadmap. I want to share with you this normal situation that is occurring once in a while because of the COVID-19 crisis in aviation. The first one is a pilot who got a terrible proficiency check when was evaluated by the flight instructor to fly again during the COVID-19 crisis. There are two ways to face this situation. One is asking, why are we like oil and water? Because he doesn't understand very well the flight instructor, and he's always having communication problems with him. And there is another way to face the situation, to think in a different way. What can I do to show him I am the best pilot for this proficiency check? When Oscar changed the way he communicated with the flight instructor, it changed everything. Now people are saying that Oscar and his flight instructor is a proof that polar opposites can work together, and this is basically because they changed the way they are communicating each other. He found his mistake was lack of situation awareness. He trained by himself to reach the optimum level of situation awareness, and now he's flying safe. And this is normal in aviation. And we have to choose which way we have to use to improve our situation. In the right side, we have another situation. Sarah is an education leader. She was diagnosed with breast cancer in her first 40s. When she asked, why me? She said it felt like a death sentence. Then she asked, what's most important to me? This helped her to define what she wanted her life to look like in whatever time she had left. She's now cancer-free and more focused on the relationship that mean the most to her. And I present you these two situations to pass to the next slide, because I build off this presentation to invite you to draw your roadmap to face the COVID-19 crisis. One way would be to, we have been understanding my story when I was a young pilot, that I discovered recently that I built my biggest innovation in my life that saved my life. And then I present you the different flight competencies that all pilot has today. no matter if you have passed through the ABT course or whatever training course, you all together have competencies, and you have to understand what are those competencies, the most important to you. And I want to invite you to answer the following questions. In step 1, expected results and dreams. What can you improve to be the best and safe pilot in your airline or in your new job? And the second one will be, when can you make the necessary changes to improve yourself? And in step 2, what is your current situation? What is your mood? Because mood is very important to face the crisis. What is your financial situation? Because as some of you mentioned, there is a vulnerability on pilot jobs, and maybe some have lost their jobs. And when was your last flight? To understand your current situation. Then to understand your limitations, maybe you can ask yourself, what are your current limitations or obstacles to go from current situation to expected results? What kind of things can appear in an unexpected way? You have to think as the way you think when you were scheduled to your flight sim. And then ask the following question: are you prepared for the unexpected? And finally, answer these two questions related to the formula or recipe. What will happen if your first flight is a success? Or what will happen if you fail during your next flight or your next business? And when you answer these questions, you can draw your map, your roadmap. And I want to tell you, as I started in the beginning, yesterday I was clever. So I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself. This is a quote from Rumi. And I know that there is not enough time, so I was planning to do this exercise with all of you and to share information between all together. And maybe next time could be the time, Daniel. You have any question?
Thank you, Daniel. I think that's exactly a good moment now to just discuss with the pilots whether you are also interested to make a follow-up session, because as we had last week an aviation women's panel, we can of course also have a second panel. So that's the question from my side, whether we shall plan for such a session that Daniel can maybe do his workshop with us in a more detailed manner. So what's the feedback from the attendees of our first pilots panel? Shall we plan for such a session?
Okay. Okay, that will be fine.
Captain Hamdan and Chief and Priya, what do you say about that?
Yeah, Daniel, I think it's a great idea to do a follow-up. It's actually very insightful at this point in time with COVID and you know how challenging things have been. I think it'd be a great idea to do a follow-up on this.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. I like very much all the things I've seen, because I think airlines can learn a lot from Formula One. That's one of my themes, because I think exactly what you said, this teamwork and using technology and clear processes and to train the right people makes it really magic to change 4 tires in 2 seconds. That's something which I also use very often, talking about business transformation and making use of digital technology in airline operations. I also liked very much your statement of having a roadmap, because I think airlines need a clear roadmap to recovery, to get out of the crisis. And I think people, training and technology might be the outcome. and we are going to discuss this in the upcoming weeks and months in different sessions. So I'm also inviting you to register for these sessions and hopefully having you soon again. And yeah, I'm have to say thank you. I feel very much inspired also to all the pilots and attendees to this session. And I wish you a great day. And the important thing, please stay healthy and safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for all of you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Bye-bye.
It was great.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Muy bien, mi coronel.
Gracias.